In this video, I'll be showing you how to cut out the 10 winter paper snowflake patterns. This is probably the most popular pattern pack because it has the Snowman pattern, which is everybody's favorite. When you order this on papersnowflakeart.com, you will get a PDF download. The cover page is not included just to save you from having to print out in color. But you'll get all the patterns, and when you print them out on your own printer or take them somewhere to have them printed, see if you can have them print full size instead of fitting them to the page. That will help you just get the pattern a little bit bigger, and it'll be a little bit easier to cut out. Included in this pattern pack, we have the Snowman, Sled, Winter Hat, Gingerbread Man, Polar Bear, Reindeer, Snow Globe, Wreath, Ice Skate, and the Penguin. You'll need scissors and the 1/8 hand punch, 1/8 inch. You also could use a 1/16 inch, which is a little bit smaller. You'll see on the patterns, most of them use this about 1/8 inch size hand punch, but for some of them, like the snow globe, you could do a lot more of the smaller punch or a mix of the two. So either hand punch would work. When you're ready to do one of the patterns, you'll follow the directions at the bottom, and I'll show you how to do them in real time. You'll first start by folding across this middle hamburger fold, as my kids say. Then you'll see that there's numbers. 2 goes on top of 2. So that's going to fold up like that. I put a finger right down at the crease and then line it up perfectly, press it nice and crisp. Then 3 will go on top of 3. So the same thing, it comes up and on top like that. They stack. And finally 4 on top of 4, they come together. So line your edges up, make sure you have a nice sharp point. Sometimes I use my fingernail to kind of get that point really crisp. When you finish, just press down nice and hard on the edges so that they're flat. They'll make them a little bit easier to cut. And then you'll see there's this shaded pattern on one side. You can trim that extra paper off the top, and then you'll cut around the edges, cut away the gray, leave the white, and that's all you have to do. This is our Gingerbread Man paper snowflake pattern. I'll start with the 1/8 inch hand punch for the eye. Then I'll work my way down, starting with the smile, then the bow tie, these buttons are diamonds, so they're a little bit easier to cut along the fold than like a circle might be. If you wanted to make a whole family of gingerbread men, you could experiment with different buttons. But I'll just do the diamonds for now. And then finish by going around the outer edge. Be careful down here by the smile and the bow tie where your cut might have gone a little bit longer. The connection point is right here at the foot. So make sure you keep that whole fold there. There he is. This is the ice skates paper snowflake pattern. We're going to start with a 1/8 inch hand punch right along the laces so that you don't have to turn your scissors around in that curved small area. You can just do the hole punch. And then it's a lot easier to cut out the laces of the ice skate. So pinch it so that it doesn't slide around, and then just come kind of on the top and the bottom. The tricky part of the ice skate is right here. When you come around the bottom of the sole of the skate, you want to make sure that you're not too close to your fold over here so that you don't cut all the way through. So give a little extra space there if you find that that gray is getting close to the fold. Just depending on how you folded it, it might be. So you could leave like a little bit extra room there. And then you come around the corner of that heel. Now the paper likes to slide, so just get it nice and organized before you trim around the edge. And this part is pretty easy, but you want to make sure that you don't let it move too much. And curve just a little at the end. The Polar Bear Paper Snowflake pattern uses the 1/8 inch hand punch at the eye. And then you'll cut out the nose. And the mouth, being careful not to go too far close to the side of the head when you do the mouth. And then around the outer edge. There are 2 connection points on the fold with this pattern. One at the tip of the hand, the paw. Just the tiniest little connection point to help stabilize the snowflake when it's opened up. And then the foot is the main connection point, so it's a little bit thicker along the fold down there. The Reindeer Paper Snowflake pattern is one of the top sellers on my website, and to cut out the eye hole, we'll use the 1/8 inch hand punch. But if you don't have this size, if you have 1/16 or the 1/4, the face of the reindeer is big enough that it can handle a bigger or smaller eye. Or if you don't have a hand punch at all, you can always draw it on with a marker. The nose is kind of a big oval shape, so try to just go around the corner slowly there. The mouth, you'll see, is pretty close to the neckline and the nose, so you just are going to make like a little sliver of a cut here so that we don't cut through. You've got a little tuft of hair up at the top. Fur, I guess. And then you'll come around. Sometimes it can be easier to cut if you get some of the paper out of the way. So you don't get tangled in your scrap paper there. And just go slow. If you want to keep your antlers connected to the fold, it would stabilize the snowflake a little bit. I'm going to trim that off so all of the reindeer will have separate heads. They won't be connected up at the top. They'll only be connected down at the body. The Sled Paper Snowflake pattern, you can use a 1/8 inch hand punch for the hole or a 1/16 inch. If you use the 1/8 inch, just give yourself a little extra room around it so that it's not too close to the hole. I'll use the 1/16 inch today just because it's tiny and a little easier to cut around. Or you could skip it all together. This pattern takes some patience and some scissor skills, mostly at this section right here where you were coming around the wooden boards of the sled. So I like to get this top area out first, being very careful to not cut through this tiny area of the handle. And then you need to come down straight, straight, straight. And get this little inner piece out. Once you get that section done, the bottom is a little easier. You want it to look like this is one straight board, so just be careful to sort of line it up, line your cut up. so that it matches the top section. That will help it to look like a continuous unit. If you have microtip scissors, it's a little easier to cut these tiny pieces because you can just snip, not have to saw around the corner like that. And then we'll hold it really flat and press it so that it doesn't move as we finish up around the outer edge. This part can be a little tricky, so don't overcut. Give yourself a little extra space if you need it. The snow globe paper snowflake pattern is fun because you can experiment with the size of your snowflakes. If you just want to follow the pattern here, you could use the 1/8 inch hand punch, or if you wanted to add more of a flurry of snowflakes, you could use a smaller hand punch or even a star. So you could experiment with this, and you can also experiment with what you put in the middle of your snow globe. This will just be an evergreen tree, but you could test out other things if you wanted to, if you're getting creative with your snowflakes after you practice the patterns a few times. So we'll start with the snowflakes using our hand punch. And there are some skinny little details here. We're going to keep that white right up to the fold. That will help keep the divisions between the tree branches there. This is also quite thin here, so just be careful as you cut. You want to leave that white area there. I tend to start at the top and work my way down. So make sure you're leaving enough white space between that we haven't snipped through. This rounded bottom edge is what helps make it look like a snow globe. So follow that path right along there. And then for these two sections, the trickiest part is this corner. So I use my microtip scissors and either snip it like this, or I hold it and pivot the paper up to get that out. Sometimes with your fold, this corner can end up really close to the edge, so just watch where that is on your own snowflake. It might be a little closer to the fold. If that's the case, when you come around here, you'll give it a little extra space, especially if your paper starts to slide like mine is beginning to. And again, you'll come up to find that top cut and then go around the edge. This is a pretty sturdy snowflake. It's good for hanging, and that's because of all of the white paper and because we didn't cut through the branches of the tree. The Snowman Paper Snowflake pattern is my most popular pattern. For the hole punches, you can either use the 1/8 inch, which is what I'll use, or you can use the 1/16 inch, which is a little bit smaller. If you use the smaller one, you can give the snowman more mouth stones, I guess you would say. But I'll use the 1/8 inch. So if your dot is very close to your fold, you might want to do the hole punch a little bit farther over, just a touch, so that your hole punches don't connect on that innermost layer. So you can see how I went slightly to the side of mine, just due to how my pattern is kind of curved around the edge, and so everything's a little closer to the fold. Now I'll do the nose. For the hat, if it's kind of annoying to come down and go around the corner, you can also kind of angle your first cut and then meet it with the bottom if you find that these corners are tricky. This one especially, if you cut too far here, you might snip the hat off completely. I've done that dozens of times. So just be careful with that bottom cut so that when you come around, you don't cut the top off. The scarf is close to the mouth, so we'll give that a little space here. And it also comes kind of close to the edge down here, so just don't go too far past where the scarf ends. The buttons are diamonds, so they're pretty easy to cut out. You just have to be careful not to snip too far. I also have a simple snowman pattern. The simple snowman has an arm that is just a stick, no fingers. This snowman is more complicated. The not so simple snowman. So as we come around the edge here, we're going to pinch the snowflake, the paper, so that it doesn't slide. Especially down here where you can see this area is thin, and if the paper slides around, I might accidentally cut all the way through. I tend to come up like this, around like that, and then get rid of the paper. That way I can organize my paper flat again and get rid of this excess paper, so that I can make sure I'm not cutting off any fingers when I do this little triangle cut. One there and one here. So it's connected at the fold. That will make it look sort of like the snowmen are holding hands. This is a skinny arm, so you want to hold here so that it doesn't shift. Keep your scissors right in there and pivot. For the winter hat snowflake pattern, you only need a pair of scissors and cutting patience. We'll start up at the top where the pom-pom is. All along this edge, you'll want to just give a little space so that you don't snip all the way through the hat and have to start over again. Part of what helps this to look like a hat is this rounded curve here and rounded curve here. So while you're cutting, just keep that in mind, because the side of the hat goes right up against the fold. They all kind of connect together, and that curve helps to just differentiate the hats slightly. But don't come all the way down, because you want to save part of that fold to keep your snowflake together. With our Wreath paper snowflake pattern, you just need a pair of scissors. The areas that we're going to be careful about are right here where you are cutting a bow out, and right down here where the bow ribbon comes down. But you don't want to cut all the way through to this side over here, and you don't want to cut this off there. So we'll start with the bow because that can be the trickiest part. Can kind of chip away at it in little bits and pieces rather than feeling like you have to go around the entire thing. It can also, just by taking little pieces out, it gives you a chance to readjust and flatten your paper back out if it starts to slide. If you have a point down here, just hold it tight. Hold your end really tight, and you can bring, if you've got room, you can bring that bow ribbon down to a point. Then you'll come up here, get this edge out. And do your wreath swoops. Down here you have to be careful with your wreath swoops, but up at the top you can kind of make them, you can make as many or as round as you want, because you kind of have a lot more open space up there. I love the penguin snowflake pattern because it's such a great example of using positive and negative space to achieve the colors that you would normally see on a penguin. But that does make it pretty tricky to cut, mostly this very thin outer line here. So we'll go slowly and carefully and try to keep it all together. Start with your hole punch. It's the 1/8 inch hand punch for the eye. The beak will be next. The reason I do these first is because it would be a lot trickier to cut these after we cut this next part out. Then you're just going to hold it nice and tight so your paper doesn't slide around. Cut out this middle part. Now, when you get over here near your fold, depending on how you folded, this gray might come closer to the fold. Give it some extra space, because if you cut through, your penguins will fall apart. So maybe don't go all the way up to the edge of the gray on the pattern. Same thing over here, depending on how you folded, it's very narrow. You don't want to cut all the way through. And think about your paper that's on the very inside of this fold. It's a little bit easier to cut. There's a little bit of a dip here, almost like a heart. So you come down and come up around like that. So we made sure this is connected. We didn't come through our fold here or here. Now we cut this thin line, so just pinch it tight in the middle because it likes to slide. Don't cut your fingers. And pivoting can be kind of tricky, so just go slow. Cut this edge out. Same thing, it likes to slide around because it's thin. And the feet. You can either leave this foot connected to this fold over here or come all the way around to separate it, which is what I tend to do. And then because it's so thin and the way that the design has this outer edge, this is a really good snowflake to flatten under a book after you've cut it out so that it retains its shape. Let's play Guess That Snowflake. Thank you for following along and cutting out these paper snowflakes with me. If you like this pattern pack, you can find the whole thing at papersnowflakeart.com. And please subscribe and share this video.